Want to sell more books? Make sure you're at the Self-Publishing Show live this summer. Meet the biggest names in self-publishing at Europe's largest conference for independent authors. Enjoy 2 days packed with special guests, an exclusive networking event, and a digital ticket for watching the professionally filmed replay, including bonus sessions not included at the live show. Head over to selfpublishingshow.com/tickets and secure your spot now. The Self-Publishing Show Live is sponsored by Amazon KDP.
On this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
Amazon are at this moment in time hot on questioning authors, especially self-published authors, whether they can prove, one, that the cover is theirs, and two, whether the images on the covers have been properly bought and they need evidence.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers, no more barriers, no one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Bache as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello and welcome. It's a Friday, which means it's the Self-Publishing Show with me, James Bache.
And me, Mark Dawson. And it's not just any Friday, James. It's Good Friday.
It's a good Friday. Is it Good Friday?
It's Good Friday. It's good. We're recording this the week before Good Friday, but yes, this goes out on Good Friday. So happy Easter, everybody.
Just after Maundy Thursday. Okay, Good Friday. We really need to get the intro re-recorded. People keep saying to me, you're not really a first-time author.
That's what we do. Yeah, we have to hire Huey again or find someone similar.
There we go. I think we should get...
Jeff Capes.
Jeff Capes is not a professional broadcaster.
Yes.
Sue Cook?
Sue Cook, yeah, exactly.
I know, I was thinking more sort of Daniel Craig or something like that.
He's not very busy at the moment, is he? He's given his, he's not
He's given up, he's retired.
Yeah.
Virtually retired. Does that, does that Southern detective.
I know who we should definitely get. I mean, the obvious choice, isn't it? It's
Steve Coogan as Alan Partridge.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Let's look into that. Let's tell John that we need to find out how much it would cost to get Steve Coogan to go into character as Alan Partridge and do our intro. Yeah,
I'm gonna say a lot, but he runs companies and
probably a lot. Maybe like 20 seconds.
I've never heard him do voiceovers, and well, not recently. He did in his early days. He did loads, but anyway, yeah, I could probably do one. Look, we've got a few things to talk about, and then we have a really good interview with Stuart Bache. We're going to be talking about cover design, how to be a good client of a cover design artist, how cover design changes are happening at the moment, trends to keep an eye on, particularly in romance. And we are also going to talk about artificial intelligence, AI, cover design, and AI generally, actually, because Stuart's quite into all that stuff. That's coming up in a few moments. Got a few things to mention before then. We should say that the Self-Publishing Show Live tickets available at selfpublishingforum.com/SPS Live. Can't wait for that show in June. It's going to be June the 20th and 21st here in London, Europe's biggest indie conference. Chance to rub shoulders with the indie royalty in Europe and America. Actually, lots of people coming from the States. Make friends, find people who are doing the same thing as you. We have some innovations on that front this year. So we're going to have some genre stations in the big foyer. There's a massive foyer at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, or the South Bank Centre, and there'll be genre stations, Mark, so you can go and stand next to a pillar that says...
That's right. Yeah.
Thriller, or whatever.
Yeah, that was something that we had a lot of feedback last year. So a little suggestions box, and then we spent an hour kind of going through the anonymous suggestions, which is always fun afterwards. And one of the things that came out a lot was that people wanted to identify other writers in their genre. So we're going to have little gathering spots where people can, hang out with their fantasy or science fictional romance writing contemporaries. And also thanks to our friends at Reedsy, Ricardo especially, we're going to have little badges as well that you can put on a badge that says you're a thriller writer, or stick it on your lanyard or whatever you want. So it'll be easier to identify kindred spirits, which should be quite fun.
Yep. Okay, I have something else to mention, which is a conference. I would love to go to this conference if I could possibly make it work, but June is going to be a very busy month for us. It's in Appleton, Wisconsin. It is the Cops and Writers Interactive Conference 2023. So this is our friend Sergeant Patrick O'Donnell, formerly of Milwaukee Police, Adam Richardson, RJ Beam, other guests. What will be happening? You'll learn how to improve your stories at a real working police and fire academy complex. They'll spend time covering topics from firearms, fingerprinting, all that stuff. I think there might even be some ride-alongs and cop car stuff, and you'll hear from the real deal not just make sure that your stories have that authentic note to them, but I think just tremendous fun. Who wouldn't enjoy that? That is June the 1st to June the 4th in Appleton, Wisconsin. So I guess the kind of greater Chicago area or something like that. I think Chicago is one airport you can fly into for that area. And if you want to know more about that, simply go along to, let me look up this URL, premeditatedfiction.com/copcamp 2023. premeditatedfiction.com/copcamp 2023. But if you also go onto Facebook and look up Patrick O'Donnell Sarge in his Cops and Writers Facebook group, you'll learn all about it there. Really wish I could make it, but not going to do that. And we should, if there was a military aviation camp for writers, how much fun would that be? Maybe I should do that.
Well, it's fun for you and no one else. It'd be a small conference. You could have it in your front room.
I wouldn't get tornado in there. So I've started actually on that front. We've done 2 weeks in a row now. We've done a live TikTok on a Thursday night with a former fighter pilot, guy called Sean Bell, who retired from the Air Force as an Air Vice Marshal, is now a defense analyst, but he was an operational commander in Afghanistan, having been a squadron commander and been a fighter pilot for most of his career. And we chew the breeze for an hour on TikTok and answer questions about military stuff. And
you didn't chew the breeze. You could either shoot the breeze or chew the cud.
Oh, really? Don't you chew the breeze?
No.
Shoot the breeze.
Shoot the breeze.
We shot the breeze.
Yeah.
I chewed the cud. But it's been really good fun and slowly building a live audience. It's difficult to build live audiences on TikTok. But we'll do that for a bit and see how it goes. It's interesting.
It goes against the idea of the platform, doesn't it? Because it's supposed to be kind of bite-sized, and then you ask people to sit around for longer form content. So it's kind of a bit odd.
Yes, and people scroll through. So though we have knocking on 500 viewers, the average view time is less than a minute. So people sit on there for a minute or so, and then they move on. Although there's a hardcore of 10 or 13 or so who seem to be there the whole time. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. It's all about audience building and brand building for me, and somewhere that I can sell my books. And for Sean, who is now a sort of front of camera person for the TV news channels in the UK, that's kind of a booking window for him as well. So hopefully it'll work both ways. Right. Have we got anything else to say? I'm looking at our notes.
No, I don't think we do. I think we can probably cut. If we haven't missed any.
Cut to the cud.
Cut to the yes.
Cut to the breeze.
Yes. Just checking we haven't got any Patreon supporters. I have a funny feeling we might have missed one, so I might have to ask Catherine to double check we've mentioned everyone. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I found it. It's Lisa Coolman. No address. From March the 23rd, we were told about that. So thank you very much, Lisa, for supporting us on Patreon. Very much appreciated. Means that we can keep doing things like transcripts, and James can afford his fancy cameras, and I can just kind of have my webcam and all that kind of stuff. Actually, weirdly, because it's a bit of a tangent here, a bit of a segue. So I did there.
Well done.
Thank you. I upgraded to what's the Apple operating system, the current one, whatever it is. I upgraded yesterday.
I don't even know if I'm on it, but
yeah, it's worth doing actually. And one of the things you can do is you can use your iPhone as a webcam, and you kind of hang it off the back. And then use the much superior camera. So I haven't done that yet, but maybe next time I will do, just to see what the difference is.
James's iPhone 13 Pro Max camera. Let me try, because I'm recording myself separately.
Don't do it now. Oh god. Yeah.
Oh, there James. We go.
I can see your photography. God.
I wish.
That's weird.
Wow. That's much better, isn't it, than the built-in camera?
It's very good. How did you do that? What was the
I just changed the camera down at the bottom on
oh yeah, I can do it too.
On Zoom.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. Anyway,
I
should say this is completely pointless for anyone who's listening, so apologies.
Yes.
James, we can see your writing. And all
Yes, I know.
Oh my God.
Well, remember, this is not the view that they're going to say. I'm going to disconnect.
Now I can.
Okay, so
I can just see your picture. Choose your normal camera. There we go. Yeah, that's better. So yeah, sorry about that. Okay. Everybody, like all.
I'll get John. John, for you're watching on YouTube, John will include some of that shenanigans on there. I don't think I've got anything no one can see. It's just notes about the show. And what's on my whiteboard? I mean, I actually haven't used my whiteboard for a bit. I used my notepad down here. I don't think there's anything anyone can see. There's no secrets. I mean, the password to my bank details obviously is on there.
Whatever. That's fine.
Yeah. Oh, well, do you know what? That's a bit of a game changer, because I think I might even dispense with the Sony behind, which is a bit of a pain.
What you need is, there's probably a cradle now that you can get to hang off the... or even that, yeah, exactly. James is holding up a cradle for his phone there, for those who are listening. So yeah, I might look into that, but you may find next week a step change in our video quality, because I'm not going to be using the MacBook camera anymore.
No, everything's going to change. How exciting. Okay. All right. Well, look, we've foreshadowed with this interview. I don't know what the words are, but we should get on with it. So Stuart Bache, who is a very good friend to Self-Publishing Formula. He's a part of Fuse Books with me and Mark, a superb cover designer. Honestly, I could not have been happier with the designs he's come up with for my books. I know Mark's very happy as well with his. But what I love about Stuart, talking to him, is he's very thoughtful about the industry. He's absolutely laser focused on covers that sell books, not do anything else. And so he notices these trends, and there's been some trends. I mean, I think quite a significant moment that we both talked about is a trend started by Lucy Score, effectively, of a certain type of romance cover, and that's an indie-led trend. Normally they're trad, but we've got all that in this interview, and we're going to talk about AI. And Mark and I will be back or chat off the back of this interview, or will we be replaced by robots? Only you can tell.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Stuart Bache, welcome back to the Self-Publishing Show. It's been too long since we've had you on. You are like I was going to say you're the in-house cover designer, but for our publishing enterprise that Mark and I have, you are the in-house cover designer.
I am, yeah.
It's quite a posh publishing company. It has its own design department.
I know.
We're like traditional now.
Yeah, you're getting there. You're very much traditional in style and focus, I think.
I'm going to get a big building overlooking the River Thames soon. Okay, look, we're going to talk two things. We will talk cover design, of course. We would be remiss of us not to explore that topic with you in latest trends. But we're also going to talk about AI, because you are personally very interested in this. I know you've been fiddling with the AI tools that are available and crafted your own one. And we'll talk about how it can be used, a little bit about the ethics, but also the practicalities of the best way of using it for authors like us both, who are writing from time to time and trying to get things done, and whether it can help us. But let's start, if you don't mind, with cover design. I know you posted a couple of times recently about sort of trends that are happening in the market at the moment. Is there anything that you have been surprised about that's emerging at the moment?
Yeah, I've been calling it the aesthetic shift. It's a sort of you might have noticed it yourself across the world, actually. So often when I talk about cover design, I talk about UK, usually predominantly, because we have such a large publishing industry, and lots of other countries across the world buy not just the books but the covers as well, across Europe, but mostly places like Australia and Africa and places like that. And America for a long time had their own sort of thing. But what's actually happened in the last, say, 4 or 5 years is America has started to either buy or produce very similar looking books and book covers to the UK, which we have always, as someone who learned cover design through trad publishing, we've always been very sales based. So it's always about looking at the end user, the reader, and what how they're going to pick up the book, and how they pick up books in the first place, how they read, and their favorites, and all their authors, and the covers, and the trends, and all that sort of thing. And whereas in America, it's always been a little bit more sort of the lowest common denominator, as it were. So you're always looking for a design that will suit many people. So
Right.
the designs aren't always specific. They can look. You can't always guess the genre straight away.
Which
Actually,
you've
they
always
found,
taught us is a big no-no, like the one thing you shouldn't do.
and that's true, because also what I found with, as you know, I design predominantly for self-published authors, and a huge part of my market is American clients, and our American clients, shall I say, and they are I design using what I've learned in the UK, and it works for them. And actually, I do think a large part of why trad, especially, is sort of in the US, is moving towards a more UK-based thing. It's not me. I'm not going to say it's because of me, but because a lot of indie authors are thinking more about their market and thinking about how they're selling their books. And some of the best-selling authors in the States are indie authors. And I think that's really started to influence trad as well. Anyway, with in terms of trad in the States, they are producing book covers that are looking very similar to UK book covers. And we're actually sharing our work now. So a UK publisher so HarperCollins in the UK, if they have a book, it might not be HarperCollins in the US that publish it. It might be a different publisher. And so they will sometimes buy the artwork from each other. It used to be that we would do completely unique covers, but actually now they're starting to share a lot more, which tells me that the market's becoming much more similar.
Yeah, homogeneous, is that the word? Where they sort of
it is. Yeah,
merge?
it seems quite a negative word, but it's I think it's to do with the internet, really, and such a huge, Amazon and places like that. They share so much artwork between the different, especially indie authors, and there's so many more writers now. I think things like that are helping.
Yeah, well, we certainly noticed Lucy Score's book, which took off last year, Things We Never Got Over, and the sequels just hit #1 on the New York Times and Amazon store this year. That cover did spark a lot of similar looking covers in trad as well. I saw trad authors in the UK with a very similar, and I think it started. So that's amazing, really, that an indie author. I mean, I know she's trad published as well, the print version of that book, but I think that cover came from her roots, whoever her cover designer is.
I think that's what I was saying before. There's definite aesthetic shift. I call it the aesthetic shift because as with Lucy's, the cover is a bit more beautiful or a bit nicer to look at. It only works in certain genres, so it wouldn't work for crime and thriller and that kind of thing, obviously. But it's really big in historical fiction, specifically anything to do with mystery, anything that is sort of, I think they call it myth and fantasy. So you've probably seen the massive surge in sort of mythological figures. So Circe was one of the titles, and I'm trying to think of some of the others now. And my wife Natasha's been reading a lot of them. I've got them on my bookshelf, but they are absolutely beautiful covers. And what's really interesting is that they are commercial as well. So that traditionally, only really literary novels were beautiful.
Yeah.
And that didn't really matter whether they sold or not, because they might win awards. They're for the awards, really. And commercial fiction always focused almost solely on people buying and how to design a cover, how to create a cover that would make people pick it up. That was much more the focus. And that's why sometimes you see lots and lots of repeat, even today, and it still works. It probably work forever, but the running man in crime and thriller is still very, very, very dominant. You see it in any bookshop and on Amazon. It will always be that way, probably. But actually, there has been a tonal shift in more beautiful looking covers. That also goes with things like cozy fiction. I get a lot of people come back at me. I've done a few different conferences over the last few years where I've brought up people like what's his name? He's a massive author over here in the UK, especially, and Richard Osman.
Yeah, Richard, I was thinking, I wondered if you were talking about Richard Osman, yeah.
Yeah, his illustrated more, I wouldn't say beautiful, but it's much more aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
Style, because it was such a big bestseller. It is starting to, I call familiarity theory,
Yes.
Other people are.
Oh, unquestionably, I've noticed that.
Cover so many times. I've seen it all over the place.
But that's it. And that's happened before with trad, hasn't it? Those big one-off. What was the David Mitchell cover that was
One Day,
and that suddenly that started that trend. But what I think is interesting is that Lucy Score is an indie author, and it's going the other way, which is how you started this revelation, really, that the indie world is now probably moving into more vibrant, dynamic areas and wagging the the tail. My metaphors mixed up. Wagging the traditional publishing, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's happening more and more, and it's really great to be a part of that. And obviously, I don't design everyone's covers, but it's self-publishing. But I decided to 200 to 300 covers a year, and so I start to see more and more. And I also work with, and have worked with, lots of cover designers who work in the industry, and becoming. I'm working more and more with indie authors, whether it's through places like Reedsy or whether they've just reached out through because they've seen their names on book covers and things like that.
Do you do 300 covers a year?
Up to 300, yeah.
Wow. You don't employ people anymore, though, do you? Or do you still?
No, it's all me now. Yeah, it's just me. And I've even changed books cover. It's going to be no more very shortly. It'll be just me, Stuart Bache design. I did a little a little question on as many platforms as I could. So in my newsletter, the Facebook and places, just asking, how do you know who Books Covered is? Do you know who Stuart Bache is? Do you know that kind of thing? And who's a book cover designer? Have you ever used these people? And people, I'm not sure who Books Covered are. I'm not sure, but I know who Stuart Bache is. And I was like, why did I not just go straight ahead with Stuart Bache design? But anyway, that's who I am now.
It's exciting for you because when you first left trad, you probably felt the general sense was, the kind of like the David Mitchell covers, kind of the leading game-changing covers come from trad, but you're serving traditional indie authors, so you want to make sure they fit in. Whereas that is the shift, as well as the aesthetic shift with the sort of physical change. That shift that you are now sitting at the front line, and that without question there are people in the trad industry sitting at desks on the internet looking at what you're doing, looking at Lucy and Colleen Hoover and those early, she's now trad as well, but those early indie authors, and that's amazing.
I know for a fact that they look at all those things. I've got still have a lot of friends in trad, people doing very well, working different aspects of trad, who know everyone. They know you all. They watch stuff. Some of them probably take your course, for example, or keep an eye on things. A lot of indie authors have been some of my clients have had trad reach out to them to write new books, not necessarily to take what they have already, and they don't always sign up, because sometimes the deal isn't as good. But then at the same time, there is a thing about readers that a lot of readers don't always know the difference between a trad and an indie, especially because now where their shop is the same place, but people still walk around bookstores, and I think sometimes that's where people pick up names. So, if you want to become a hybrid author, it's not the worst thing. Even if the deal's not great, you might get into a bookshop. You might actually then have that person buy one book and then buy all your indie books, So actually, you're making money in that respect, I guess. And it's that thing, isn't it? I always find that personally in my career, I've rarely said no to something, whether it's a new job opportunity or working for someone new or whatever, or trying something completely different in my area of expertise. From genres, which are what it was before. I was almost crime and thriller, and then I got really into literary and trad, and designing beautiful covers, and then I went into children's. I worked in children's, so some of them I failed spectacularly at, but I can't speak. But I've always learned, and I think that's the same with indie authors, you know, and that's a big thing that I've taken from you guys and from so many of my clients is just trying something new and putting yourself out there and trying different deals and stuff, you know. The reason why my wife, for example, she wrote a book last year and it was published last year, and I reached out to because I've been doing a bit of like the managing and stuff behind the scenes, but I reached out to W.F. House about an audiobook, and the audiobook was picked up and we signed a contract, and that's just been published recently. And you know, little things like that, just asking and getting out there. I think that's the big part of
at its heart, we write our books, which exposes us and makes us vulnerable and puts stuff out there. So in a way, the next bit, the phoning W.F. House, should be the easy bit, because the creative side, which Natasha's done, and I can see the book if you're watching on YouTube behind you, The Winter Crone. Oh, yeah. That's her, and it's a vulnerable time, I know, when you release a book, and not all the comments you get back are positive, of course. That's the nature of the beast. So if we go through that, we can certainly start taking chances with our marketing and other areas, and I think we're in a good position to do that. I'm going back to the cover design. I'm pleased that the Running Man's not going anywhere, because my new series, I'm twisting a little bit. I think I've told you, from the kind of the overtly military aviation to spy espionage with a bit of military aviation in there. So I'm thinking when we talk about the cover for my current work in progress, it is going to go back to Running Man, or in this case, Stuart, Running Girl, but or Running Woman, depending. Yeah. It's 1970, so Running Girl, I think, is probably what they'd term her in MI5. They probably would, yeah. And I'm the most exciting part of this, and I'm superstitious enough that I need a big chunk of the book under my belt before I talk to you about the cover, because I don't want to get ahead of myself. But I'm very excited about that conversation and what that's going to look like.
Yeah, that is exciting. It's exciting for you, but it's exciting for me too, because I feel like I've been, from when we very first started working together on your courses, actually, and I put that cover together, your first ever cover, the Final Flight, didn't I? Yeah, just there, yeah.
And here, and that's been updated. And I saw someone post as Military Thrillers, if you're watching on YouTube, is the first cover, which is an amazing cover, which Stuart did. But one of the things that I noticed that there was a slightly different thing happening with a particular. Once I started marketing the book and looking at the also boughts, that started to inform me about the marketing process. So we changed the covers. Not that I don't love this cover, but we changed it to more vehicle centric, this is one of the sequels on the other books. I did see a post on the Military Thrillers book the other day, and they had the 3 book covers and of mine, and it said, I don't know if anyone's read this guy, but these covers are amazing. And I see that all the time. The covers are an unfair advantage I have. So thank you. Yeah.
No, it was fun to do. It's actually really, when you said you wanted to try something different, I had for a while, I think I'd even mentioned to you before, I had been thinking about noticing a new sort of trend happening, and sort of thinking, I think something really, really impactful, and just, they're really simple covers.
Impact is brilliant, and they work perfectly in that genre. So in the marketing, I've been able to turn those limited series into a profitable series. I was telling Mark, actually, I've just had my 3rd month in a row of around £1,000, like 800, 900 and 1,000, just over 1,000. My first full, this is profit, not income. Profit.
Wow, that's great.
Which is amazing, yeah. So
that's amazing.
I feel like I'm on my way. I did have a book bub towards the end of last year, my first one, which was a massive fill-in.
Yeah, that is a big deal.
But so currently occupied with my work in progress, which has a more Le Carré feel to it, and I do think that a figure on the cover is going to be.
I did design Le Carré for a while.
I know you did. He's one of my favourite authors, and one of the reasons I'm struggling with this book, and I actually went through about a month without writing it, is because once I started writing it, and I've read so much Le Carré, I just felt I wasn't good enough to write this book. I'm not good enough to do this, but you've got to shake your head, get out of that, and just write your book. Because I'm not writing Le Carré book. I'm writing my book, and it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, actually. I think everyone, their own industries feel that way, but as my wife is the writer now, and she's writing the second book, and I see the same things that you just said. You start at moments where she sort of really freaks out about it and thinks, well, this isn't as good as the first, or I'm really struggling with this. And I just think I hear this so often. And I actually heard it the first time around with the first book, and she got through that. But it's hard. But I think, as you've already proved, that you can do it several times over, and I think it's just getting out of your own, getting yourself out of the way.
It is completely that, and it's very easy just not to take any notice of any past success and just look at the terrible writing of your first draft and think, that's who I am. Anyway, that's my angst, and I know lots of people will quite like hearing anybody say that, because it helps us all hear that we all suffer the same thing. But anyway, I've been writing the last few days. I'm back into it and enjoying it. And I wrote a scene this morning I'm really, really happy with. So
fantastic.
Makes me feel better. Okay, well, look, that's cover design. And we should say, I mean, you are available for cover design. It sounds like you have a bit of a waiting list if you're doing quite so many. I mean, how long does it take you to design a cover? You must be doing 1 or 2 a day, I'm guessing.
I do 2, 3 a day. I only work from 8:30 once I drop the kids off to 12 when I pick one of them up. And then I work sometimes in the evening. So yeah, it's quite intense. But I'm at the moment, it takes a couple of days to come up with some concepts and stuff. Now I've got the process down. I'm doing it for quite a while. But in terms of how booked up I am, I'm actually I have availability in May, and then the rest of the year is pretty much open. So it's I was a bit nervous because I put my fees up at the end of last year because I just had to. I've been working on the same fees for so long, and
I think I was one of a number of people encouraging you to put your fees up.
Yeah,
I know some people listening won't thank me for, but you can't be flogged to death. Something has to change. I say the same thing to my plumber, by the way, who you can't get for like 2 weeks. He'll come at an emergency, and he comes at like 9 o'clock at night because he's been so busy. And I say to him, put your fees up to do less work for the same money. And it'll be a better life, because he was stressed as hell. Anyway.
Well, that was a big part of it too, actually. It was, talking about mental health and everything, I was really stressed. I was doing that amount of work, and I felt like I had to do that amount of work because, our mortgage went up by £600 a month because of, the things that happened at the end of last year. And all those little things like that. And I just was like, oh, how are we going to do this? And I was really reluctant to put my fees up because I don't want to lose work. You always feel that that's what's going to happen. And I've been quite surprised, actually, that people, I've either said, that's fine. Clients, have lost a couple of clients, and that's fine. But actually, people will get in touch. New people have got in touch and said, yeah, that's great. Let's go. So I'm just as busy. I do a little less, obviously, because I can afford to do a little less. But yeah, it's about balance, isn't it? It's always about balance.
Yeah. And where do people find you? Is it still bookscovered.com? You're going to retire that URL?
It will be retired, but at the moment it's still bookscovered.co.uk. You can still use that in the future, because I'll have things using that to direct to stuartbache.co.uk. I still do the SPF discount, which is an ebook and some marketing for £520. And that's a really good deal. And you can obviously upgrade that to a paperback. But my standard fees now for ebook only is £650, and for ebook and paperback is £800. That is a lot. I know it is. I know it's different from a lot of places. But actually, Middle Art, who's a big competitor and are fantastic, are about the same now. And there's some other places that are doing similar as well. I think it's just. I think for me, it also actually makes me feel, and this is not what really we're here to talk about, but it actually makes me feel a little bit more like I'm being treated more as a specialist. And there is an aspect, I think, when you hire a designer, especially if you don't really know who they are. I'm not saying that I'm anyone special, by the way, but I've got a huge amount of experience, and I feel like the fee is now paying for that experience. And I think the people who are accepting the fee are people who are happy for me to say, I don't think that's the right direction. And, and we have more of a conversation. Whereas before I felt like it was just like, well, no, that's my idea. So get on with it, and I kind of think,
yeah,
I know what I'm talking about and no one's listening to me. And
what's it? Final question on cover design. Although I think there's an AI overlap cover design question coming, but what makes a good client? How can we be a good client to get the best out of you?
I think there's a balance. I've always said that, I've said this for years now, it's a good designer of any sort hasn't got too much ego. So one side is ego, which is, I know best. I'm not even going to listen to you or read your brief. I know what's working. You're just going to accept it. And then the other side is what they used to call a Mac monkey, which is such an old term now. But it's someone who just does exactly what they say. They have no autonomy, and there's exactly as they're told, shall I say. And you're in the middle. A good designer is in the middle. Someone who has experience and enough ego to say, I know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to listen to you. And if you really don't like that idea, if you really don't want to go that way, I'll do what you ask me to do, but I'm going to offer you my experience. And I think in terms of a client who comes to me, I think it's actually not, I don't need too much information, blurb, length, synopsis is enough for me. Mostly comparative covers. That's the thing that I'm a visual person. So seeing where, when you pick some visuals out and you say, wait, these are the covers, these are the books and the authors that are in my genre, that are doing well, and my story is very similar to these. When you're picking those out, you're telling me what you're seeing in a sense, and that's better than a manuscript. There will be lots of cover designers who'll say, I have to read the manuscript. I just have to, because otherwise I can't get into the right mindset. And I either think they're lying or they don't have a lot of work on, because I just don't, I can't do that. And I also, as a person who works from a sales perspective, no one has read the book before they've bought it. So they don't know all of that, all those intricacies. I can't say that word.
Intricacies.
That's the word. They don't know all of that. They just know what they're seeing, and that's how I like to work. So, I think you and Mark, there's lots of other authors as well, lots of other clients, but I always use you and Mark as a really good benchmark, because, Mark will send me a brief just saying, right, okay, so he's in Egypt, and this is a bit of the scene. And so he goes over to Washington, and there's a bit of the scene there. And that's enough for me. I can get on with it. It's a bit easier, I guess, with that kind of area, because I've been designing those covers for so long, and I know crime and thriller inside out. But that's what I like. I like a good visual. I love good comparative covers, and be as simple as possible. I think the more complicated you make it, and it's okay to have ideas. And I've had also recently clients who have sent me little mock-ups of their own, ideas, and they've said, I'm really sorry, this is embarrassing. I don't want to show you what I've done, but I don't mind that. I don't mind. It gives me an idea of what they've been thinking about and how I can kind of emulate that a little bit, or maybe take some of the idea from that into something else. But on the whole, the clients I've had the most issue with are the ones who have really focused on what they want, what they like, and they can't seem to move away from that. And it's very
difficult. So a bit over-prescriptive to you based on their version of what's happening in scenes, which is all irrelevant, as you say, to someone who's not read the book.
And they also have an idea in their head, which I can't create that cover that's in their head. I can't see it like they can. So, that's kind of for the area.
Good. Well, there is a design course which is available, which actually a really big part of this course is about that process of what covers work and getting to that point, which I think really helps you as an author do the brief and have the dialogue and get to a good result. So selfpublishingforum.com/design. It's primarily, I suppose, the courses for people who are going to DIY. It's going to teach the techniques and the theory behind the genres and stuff. But it's really good, I think, just for authors who work with cover designers as well. I learned a lot through that process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about AI. So there is, you say, knocking on the door of both writing, cover design, and lots of areas of life is this artificial intelligence, which I don't know why technically has suddenly in the last sort of 18 months or so seemed to have taken a step forward to more user friendly basis. One thing that's happening is that there are such things as AI cover designers now, but this is an area fraught with some legal uncertainties, and I believe there's a court case going through at the moment. Do you just want to give us a bit of background on that before anyone leaps to using a service such as this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there are lots of different apps online and on phones and places like that, like Midjourney, DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion, I think is one. But even some stock image libraries, Shutterstock now has an area that you can click on that's the way you can like type in your own thing. I think it uses DALL-E to and its own images and Shutterstock to create some new images for you. So yeah, I've took an interest straight away because I love all this sort of stuff anyway. I love coding, and I learned some basic code last year, some Python, and so I could just play with it myself. So rather than just using what they showed, I mean, it was OpenAI when they sort of talked about it about a year ago, maybe 2, and I signed up for it. I didn't hear back. I didn't really hear anything about it, and then suddenly I was accepted in about a year later and started playing around with it. And I thought, wow, this is actually really, really cool. And then DALL-E 2, which was the sort of the image-based our AI came about, and then started hearing about Midjourney. Midjourney, I think especially, they're doing something separate as well, so they're not part of OpenAI, I don't believe. Their illustrated covers or just images are incredible. And it's all about the prompt. So a prompt is the very basic prompt would be make a fantasy book cover illustration with 2 figures. One figure looks like this, the other figure looks like this, background looks like this, and then it would create 2 or 3 versions of that, and then you would pick one and you could continue down the line using that to kind of get to a point where you actually like it. That's incredible. Obviously people are very excited. It's an affordable option for a lot of authors, lots of people. I have already looked at their jobs in sort of animation. So not necessarily the animators themselves, but the people coming up with the storyboards and stuff people who work on games who'd come up with these massive storyboards with beautiful illustrated images that they could use as inspiration. A lot of people have lost their jobs already because now they're doing it in-house using things like Midjourney instead. So I looked into this and I thought, I even started thinking, right, I might do something for book cover design that uses a similar thing. I started looking at the code, I started creating images, started working them, creating better prompts that would make images so I could use them personally, but I could also maybe have something online, something like a book brush, but it's using AI. I had all these ideas, and then we started thinking, well, where are these images coming from, and what did they use? And I'm sure they're all fine, As I am from a trad background, we have legal and picture researchers, legal teams and picture researchers working on everything. And everything would be all of the covers that I would ever design. I would have to give every single image I'd ever use on that cover over to a picture researcher to make sure that each individual license was correct and could be used. And not only that, whether, some licenses would only allow you to have it for so long, so for 5 years. and in a limited amount of places. So maybe only in the UK, maybe worldwide but excluding the US. So I've always been really aware, I never use free images. I don't even use Unsplash, which is a free image site, because I used one image that an author sent me from there, and it got picked up as it couldn't be used because the building in it was relatively new, and lots of new buildings have the architects have a license from them.
So you can't put the Shard on a front cover of a book without seeking permission.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I think if it's, as long as it's there might be certain ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe if it's on its own in center, then yes, no, you shouldn't be able to use things like that. So I started looking into it a bit more, and there are some concerns about copyright infringement. Midjourney, so with the Getty images are suing Midjourney and a bunch of others, because they're saying that, or they're at least claiming that millions of images of Getty's images were used without permission in creating to create the AI in the first place.
It's the accusation someone believes that basically they fed the Getty image library into the AI to use as its prompt, its learning.
And it might have been not necessarily they went to Getty, or they went to the site that they might have used picture search tools, in Google and things like that maybe it's picked up something. The other thing is that it has been noted a few times when an image has been created, that you can still see some of the watermarks from images sort of appearing, which is...
Well, that's a giveaway.
And it's a bit of a giveaway. I think also that there are images that you would think maybe on Wiki Commons that you might pick up on there, and someone's uploaded it and said, this is free to use, so they might take in images from there. But I never use images from places like Wiki Commons either, because you don't know who uploaded it, and you don't really know whether it is available. So there's little things like that. I don't know where that's going to go. I think in terms of copyright, I've spoken to a couple of art directors in trad, people who've been working in the industry for a very long time, and I just said, what are you going to do? Are you going to embrace it? Are you going to, because I just know how important it is for them not to be sued. And I have been in situations, not my own cover, where when I worked in trad, where there was a very well-known actor who had an autobiography, and the image, and he passed away. So this was like a reissue years later, and they used an image, and they'd had an artist illustrate. So they used that image as a basis, the photograph as a basis for an illustration, and it got published, and it was part of a series of books that were being republished in like a new brand for a new imprint that it had been assigned to, but it had been, been published years before. Anyway, I can't remember. I'm fairly certain it was Getty, but Getty said, "Where did you get that image from?" So regardless of the fact that it was an illustration from a Getty image, they'd never bought the original Getty image. And, it was an illustration, but it was an exact replica of that image.
Yeah.
And as far as they're concerned, that is, you still need to have a license for it. And they had to pulp every single book.
Wow.
And completely redo it. And because...
So is the upshot of that is if we use one of these services to create our cover, we are potentially going to fall foul of this. And where does that go in the future? Is there some sort of legal test that can be done? How will you ever know?
Well, that's the trouble. And so that's why I'm steering clear personally. I've seen lots of people on your community show absolutely stunning covers that they've created with sci-fi, fantasy, things that look... you would not know the difference necessarily from a professional illustrator and some of this work, which is fantastic. But as with the art directors I've spoken to, they have decided to steer clear for now and maybe forever, just because they don't know. There is another thing, which is Amazon. Amazon are at this moment in time hot on questioning authors, especially self-published authors, whether they can prove, one, that the cover is theirs, and two, whether the images on the covers have been properly bought and they need evidence. I've had to write contracts out for some of them are very big authors, so they're not just they've only published one book. Some of them have published entire series and doing really well. And I've had to prove that I bought that image for that cover. Now, what happens when they start asking about AI-generated covers? And where are you supposed to say you got the image from?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have an end person. There's no person at the end saying, well, I created that illustration, because they didn't. So I think, and obviously there's the EU AI Act, which I don't think has taken place yet. It's supposed to be coming in at the end of last year, but I haven't really heard anything since. But that's basically regulations around AI and how to use AI, mostly around things like creating content, but it's more about the algorithm and the AI itself rather than what it's creating. But I could see that, with a lot of EU laws and regulations are about, ethical practice and being responsible and, placing restrictions around things. So what I don't want to do is create something for someone and then at some point in the near future or even down the line that they say, so I'm using AI, for example, and Amazon, an EU regulation, Getty wins their lawsuit, whatever it is, and they have to have their covers pulled. Well, their books or works have something banned, because sometimes that does happen with places like Amazon. So that's why I'm not touching it. I think also it's really creative and interesting and wonderful. I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer over it. I do really find it interesting, and I have spent a huge amount of time learning about it. I now have some moral issues around it, sort of more ethical considerations about when people say, I want a cover that is the same style as this artist. I have issue with that personally. It would be like saying, I want to write a horror book. I'm writing a horror book using this AI, and I want it to sound and look like a Stephen King novel. I want it to be exactly the same as a Stephen King novel. Now, there would be issue there, wouldn't there? And he would have an issue with that, because he'd go like, well, write your own book, write in your own style. But there's little things like that. I think I have a little bit of an issue. I'm not an artist, so I'm a cover designer. I don't have a style, I don't have as such. But I know a lot of illustrators who spend decades working on this style, who get hired because of that style, because of how something that they've spent so long painting and learning, and from photographers to illustrators. And if I was one of them, and someone, and it's difficult to get work as it is for them. If someone just came along and they sort of saw posters with their style of work everywhere, and they haven't been paid for that, I think I question. I saw someone in the community who said, great, it was great artwork from Midjourney, but they said, oh yeah, I one of my prompts was, and they wrote down the names of several, artists and illustrators that they really loved their style. And I just felt I just couldn't do that, personally. And I don't know whether that would be an issue for anyone else. I don't think it would be an issue going forward, because no one really cares about stuff like that. But in terms of I think the real sticking point would be the copyright thing. Now, as I say, I do like AI, and it's just, and I am a book cover designer. I do feel like if this does keep going and there are no issues, and Getty, the whole lawsuit goes away, or whatever, or there's no real regulations, I do think that people like myself will struggle to get more work. I think affordable options, almost free in some cases, will start to dominate. However, they will be created by authors and clients who don't really know much about what works and what doesn't work. So we might lose work initially, but you're going to still need a professional designer to understand.
Yeah, you realise the premium of using
Absolutely.
a human is the sales. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like if they're learning, the machines learn from humans. And if that goes on and on, in the end, fewer humans get work. So the machines learn from other machines that have learned from humans in the past. And in the end, we get to where Steven Spielberg had us in Artificial Intelligence, the film, where there's only machines left. And in the very, very dim, distant millennia past, where humans, and that's everything they've been based on, but they don't have humans anymore. So that's the dystopian future we can all look forward to. Sounds like a novel. Maybe one thing that could be used, Midjourney could be used for, is that process you were talking about earlier in creating a rough image of what you think the cover might work like, to help the designer know what's in your head. And maybe that's as far as it should go, just between the two of you, not published, but used as a tool like that.
Yeah, as long as if there's, and that actually would work really well. I think as long as it's not that you're expecting the same illustration style.
No,
I think that's
it's
that's
got to be
where
an idea of
an idea, and I think that works. And once again, I'm not, I know that all sounds very negative, but I do really like AI. And I think in terms of writing, it can really help people. That's different because once again, I've been I know I'm going on for quite a while now, but that's an area that I've really taken interest in, and I've joined lots of forums and lots of groups and seen what other people are doing with it. And I've seen people who are trying to write books using it, and they always fail. And the reason that they're failing is because none of them really want to be authors. They just want to write something and think that they can get, that's how you can do it. I'm going to write a book, it'll go on Amazon, it might be a bestseller. But they're completely removing the author aspect.
Yeah.
They think they can even teach it. And everything I've seen so far hasn't really got that way. Maybe one day. I don't think so, though, because there are aspects that it just doesn't understand. I can tell it about the, 3-act story arc, how that works, or the hero's template, using the idea of how that works and where the beats are in a book. But it doesn't do it. It doesn't understand it, because that's the human aspect.
Yeah.
And also, I think, but what it can do is it can look at what you're doing and it can give you a bit of a hint in the right direction. I created an app called Wordflow. It was just a bit of something fun I wanted to try, but I actually found it helped with emails and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually thought that it would work. I've had some beta people testing it for a while, but I had a lot going on at home. My son had an operation and stuff, so it's all just been a bit like I've just kind of pushed it to the side. But what that does really nicely is it just looks at bits. So it looks at what you've written, it looks at your synopsis, and you say, right, I've got to a bit, I'm a bit stuck, I've got a bit of writer's block or whatever it is, and you just suggest something to me, and you can go through the suggestions until you find something that fits. And then you just move on, and you're still writing. It's just there as an aid. It's like pro writing aid, and I think there are lots of other apps. Obviously, Pseudo Write and Shortly AI. All of those do pretty much that. In a more long form manner.
Are they? I can ask a question. Are they all different engines behind them, or is Pseudo Write using the same engine that ChatGPT uses, and so on? Or
so ChatGPT is different. It's that is now an API, by the way, now, so I can actually use that in things if I wanted to create apps using ChatGPT. It is different in the sense that GPT is aimed at trying to create conversation. So you're learning and it's learning, but you're also going back and forth. The others, Pseudo Write, I don't know exactly which one it uses. But it probably uses DaVinci. DaVinci 3, which is the main one that I use or have used. That's the most advanced one that they have at the moment, and the most expensive one to use. However, you can actually train it and create your own. So you can use you can use DaVinci, for example, and train it. And I've done things like that as well. So you create your own engine essentially that runs based on the correct way. So it stops it from being too crazy. So sometimes it'd be absolutely fine and you're writing away and it's absolutely fine. And then it will just come out with some code randomly. It's pulled from somewhere that has nothing to do with anything. But you can actually train the engines and create your own engine and use that and go forward. So pseudo-write might have done that. And the thing with pseudo-write is that it's aiming more towards helping you try and find new words or to make a sentence and a bit more like that have a different emotion to it or a different tone. I personally don't find things like that very helpful because I mean, well, I feel like I've been talking for ages, and this has probably gone in all sorts of different directions. But you know, I was almost published in my early 20s. Then the recession hit, and I not only lost my job, but I lost my contract, and I ended up becoming a freelance designer. And I put all of my effort into that because I was homeless and I needed money. And then I became a book cover designer. I became a known book cover designer, and I've only ever gone that direction. But I can write. I have been writing for years. I come up with a million ideas a week, and I drop them all down. I just don't have time. You know, as I said earlier, I work from 8:30 to 12. I don't have my child from the rest of the day. I do some work in the evening. I don't have time to even read sometimes. So, you know, I was taught in my 20s professionally. Rita Mitchell was my tutor before
Wow.
she was known. She was my tutor. So I do know how about writing. That's why I took a great interest in something like that would help me create a first draft faster. And you know, if I had time to use it, then it would. But yeah, anyway, I find a great interest in. And I think that's the thing about writing is the human element in this understanding what works. As with anything, any area that you're working in, it's understanding how writing works, not just for you, but you know, from the beginning to the end. That it's not just linear. That there are so many aspects that you need to have, and I think that's where AI can help, but it can't compete, if you know what I mean.
Yes, as the essence of a novel is the author's writing. I mean, I've played with it a bit as well. I'm like you, I'm sort of fascinated in it, probably not to the same degree that you are, but I like playing with it. And you know, I'm a little bit stuck with plotting my whip. But the times I've used it a bit to say, well, what would you do for this novel here? I want it to start in London and end up in East Germany and then Moscow and give an outline. And it comes up with, you know, a very, very rough John le Carré style plot that's two things. One is pretty simple and obvious, and secondly, not mine. Yeah. And they're the two reasons I wouldn't use it or even use it as a prompt. I mean, I need it to be my book because otherwise there's no point in me writing it. And that's sort of where I have a problem with AI. But I think the small bits, the emotional change to a scene or stuck in a certain area and getting those prompts and just like having a chat with somebody, which is I guess what ChatGPT is potentially useful. I mean, I have to say, ChatGPT, I've asked it what to tell me about the author James Bache a couple of times now. On both occasions, it's told me that James Bache is the co-author of L.J. Ross's series. I think confused with her husband's name, and I don't know. Both times, ChatGPT's come back quite, you know, definite that James Bache has co-authored this best-selling series with author L.J. Ross. Where on earth does that come from?
Well,
he also thinks I flew in the Gulf War as an RAF pilot.
Wow, and that's incredible.
I released Final Flight in 2016, which was an instant bestseller. I mean, all news to me, all this stuff. So,
but I mean, see, that's the thing. They have the most recent release has come with new rules, essentially, saying that because of those things. So if you're going to use it for, I know that people have to diagnose how they're feeling, about, maybe it's an illness or something. But there was a really good TikTok I saw of a doctor who put in a patient's, symptoms, and it came up with, I think it's this, and he said 90% of it, he was so confident 90% of it was correct. But it said that one of the things was this. It was this extra element that, and I was like, well, where the hell has it got that from? And when I looked into it more, essentially what it had done is that it found things in its database and that it had learned from that was similar or being written by similar people, similar doctors in similar areas, and just sort of wedged it in, and I think that's where, you just can't. You can't accept it as the as a tool like Google, for example. But when there comes a point where people are going to start using something that's very similar to ChatGPT, they've been using it for Bing, for Microsoft, and I know Google will be doing something similar. I think that when they start to integrate them more, when it's actually using live, real data today, and actually finding things for you, I think that will help. Google have already got a program that will read your blogs and will know with pretty much 90% accuracy whether it's been created by AI or not, and then it will put it down the list.
And so Amazon will have this going on as well.
Absolutely.
By the way, if you're thinking about getting a book. Well, let's finish with ChatGPT's version of who you are. So tell me about the cover designer, Stuart Bache. Do you want to hear this or not?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
It's pretty good. Stuart Bache is a well-known cover designer specialised in creating book covers for authors and publishers, over 20 years experience. Let me skip to the good parts. Bache is known for his minimalist and striking designs, which often use bold typography and simple imagery to convey the essence of a book. Overall, Stuart Bache is a highly respected and talented cover designer in the publishing industry. His designs have helped many authors to attract readers and stand out in a crowded market.
Well,
that's what the robots think of you.
Yeah, well, it's because we're friends. I don't know how friendly they're going to be after I've just told everyone not to use PR, but I think that might be because I always say thank you to Alexa after it's done something for me. I think that might be what it is.
I'll tell you what, when the robot revolution, when the kill all humans, when Bender and the rest of the robots turn on us, you're going to be sitting in the machines.
I'm a nice guy.
Yes, be nice to robots. Well, if you could take one thing from this interview, it's be nice to robots, because you never know when they're going to turn. Look at that. We're coming up to an hour. We probably didn't get to some of the areas we wanted to talk about, but it's been a brilliant discussion, and I'm pleased it did centre on cover design, which is probably the best area for you and I to have a chat with in this forum. And as always, Stuart, brilliant stuff. Thank you so much indeed for coming on.
No problem. It's been a pleasure, as ever.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
There we go. So that's Stuart talking about covers. Brilliant to have Stuart on the show. Love chatting to him. He will be at Self-Publishing Show Live, and people can go and have a chat with him in person. He's very approachable.
He will also be at 20 Books as well, and he's going to also stay in our hotel, James.
Is he?
He is. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay.
So
I'll probably need to book that hotel then.
We should probably book it, yes. But Stuart, I think he's coming out for the first time to the conference in the States, so that'll be a good chance to say hi to him. I know he's offering to look at covers and do kind of analysis for free as well, which is definitely an opportunity I would seize with both hands. If I were you, not you, you generally the audience, you, because he's Stu's big part of my business. He's I think it is fair to say, it's not fair to say, it's true. I was looking for another designer and I found Stuart and asked him to do my books, and he very kindly did an amazing job. I immediately saw sales increase, and since then he's built a very significant and well-known and respected brand in the indie space. I think, as you mentioned in the podcast, he's moving from books covered to Stuart Bache design, which I think is a very good idea.
Yeah.
Because everyone really refers to him as Stuart rather than books covered, so I think that was pretty smart. So, Stu's great. No hesitation at all in recommending him completely. Yeah,
definitely. And in terms of AI, so we talked about Midjourney, which is the sort of image version of ChatGPT, if you like, which I've been playing with this week. And sent some images to you, it immediately becomes completely addictive when you get onto Midjourney. So it's done through a Discord server, and you send prompts, and depending on how you describe what you want the AI to imagine, it comes out with these images. And they're slightly weird, and I don't know whether it's a legal thing, because obviously we talked about the legal ramifications, and there is an ongoing court case. I don't know where that is at the moment. There are legal issues with it as to where the original IP is, if the machine's learned from someone, but it for some reason doesn't do an actual representation. If you ask for an RAF Vulcan, which is a particular type of aircraft, it doesn't do an exact Vulcan. It just comes up with a kind of sciencey fiction version of one. And the same with people, I think, although I did ask for, Lucy Score asked me to put in Idris Elba looking annoyed in a suit. And actually that was really good and a really strong likeness of him. But yeah, it's fascinating to play with it. What do you think of the legal stuff, Mark? So obviously there's this argument at the moment that the machines learnt from actual artists, and so therefore we should, if it's recognizable as an artist's style, they should have some of the copyright, or you shouldn't be able to use it without permission.
I think it's learn is the operative word there, and what that actually means. I suspect it's more, there's more kind of it's more copying than learning. I think that's what I'd be worried about. If it, we mentioned this before, if you had someone like a human artist, it would be expected and normal for them to be influenced by the art that surrounds them and the artists that they like.
Everything's derivative.
Yeah, everything is at some form. But I think with AI, my gut feeling is that it's slightly more copying than learning. So I would be quite nervous. I wouldn't personally use an AI cover at the moment. I think that's a bit of a hostage to fortune. I wouldn't be at all surprised if you found the retailers forbade that. How they would be able to determine what was and what wasn't generated by AI is a different question, but I would be a little bit nervous about that, at least until, not just this case. I think it's there'll be quite a lot of case law that's generated probably quite quickly, at least by legal standards, that will give you a better idea of what is permissible and what isn't. But I would stay away from it. I mean, it's fun to play with. I've done the same thing as you, and I've messed around a little bit, and it is cool. And I've seen some. I think there's a kind of there's a Midjourney iteration that is beyond the ones that we've used, and I've seen some on Twitter with some images that are very, very, very realistic. And it's not just the prompts that are being used; it's just the software or the AI is better. And there's a famous one there's two famous ones I saw last week. There was someone generated images of what he said was an earthquake in San Francisco, and it looked really realistic. Like it could be like a news report. And then the other one that's most famous and quite relevant given what happened yesterday was Trump being taken into custody in Manhattan, and there's a scuffle, and it looks, apart from that, it looks like he's got 3 legs, which is a bit weird. It does.
If you look at hands, there's very often more than 5 fingers.
Hands are better now. It's accelerating really fast, and how good it is. And I've seen some where even those kinds of, the hands are better, and it's the eyes, the kind of the uncanny valley, the kind of the eyes not looking quite right. And that was something, I saw the ABBA show not that long ago, and I think the eyes, they don't quite get the eyes right. But it won't be long. It really, you can see this pace of change right now is just ridiculous. It's a bit of an arms race.
Yeah.
You probably saw a lot of kind of top AI scientists, people, and including people like Musk, suggesting that there's a 6-month pause because at the moment they don't quite know what they're doing, and it's possible that the change could accelerate so fast that it goes beyond what they're able to contain. And
they won't get a pause. No one will agree. Well, they can try.
The government would. They've asked governments to basically tell them to stop.
We'll have speakeasies, illegal backstreet AI engines.
There is an argument that it's out of the box now. And I did another thing. I'm going off all over the place today, but another really interesting story I read was a programmer asked ChatGPT to write code to install itself on his computer, and it did that. But when he looked at the code, it included the ability for it to go beyond that computer and basically to go beyond that. It's probably
Isaac Asimov was right. They're all gonna robots are gonna kill us.
Well, I mean, it's been a trope for sci-fi for ages. I mean, obviously, Skynet and all that. But yeah, it's that was quite interesting. And people are going like, yeah, it's not really self-aware. But what if it is? You know?
Yeah. What if it is? It is. Well, we should shout out to
our
the originator.
overlords.
Well, Moore's law, because the man whose name was Moore died actually a couple of weeks ago, and he was the guy who said, you know, how quickly things double in power and reduce in size and convenience.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably the next move is, at the moment, you know, ChatGPT is used by a lot of people, and you and I had struggled to get onto it. I think it was yesterday you sent me that.
Yeah.
I've noticed it as well. Midjourney is used by fewer people because it's a bit more fiddly to get in and use. But what's going to happen in the next few months? I think Bing already, the not much used Microsoft browser, has AI built into it. That's what's going to happen.
That's ChatGPT is in Bing, and Google,
whichever engine it is.
Google's got Bard.
So we're going to have the AI is going to become, you know, you'll fire up Photoshop and there'll be AI elements in there. That's what's going to happen in the next 6 months, I think.
Yeah, well,
it'll
absolutely.
it'll be rolled out in commonplace, and yeah, it has the potential to be transformative for so many different industries. But coding, I would have thought, number one. I mean, we joked on a call the other day. We have talking to lots of lawyers at the moment for various reasons, good reasons. And someone was joking on the call. You know, they're charging now while they can before ChatGPT takes their jobs, but it's not so much of a joke to think that it's rudimentary at the moment, but in 5 years' time, which is a long time in AI development, you can have specific contracts drawn up and maybe just a quick £100 to one lawyer to overlook it. But, oh, God, I don't know. Yeah. But they'll never be able to get the soul of a story, will they? Hopefully.
I don't know. Yeah, who knows? It's interesting times. I'm writing like that about build up a nest egg. It won't matter anymore. I can retire happily and into my bunker whilst ChatGPT fires nukes and wipes out. Anyway, enough of that. People are panicking as it is.
Yes, let's not be alarmist. Okay, look, thank you very much. Good discussion, Mark. Thank you very much indeed, Stuart, for our interview this week, and to the team who produce this show every week. And thank you very much indeed for listening. Do give us a rating here and there, as the lady says at the end, which would be fantastic to give visibility to this podcast. We think one of the leading podcasts in the indie world. And don't forget, you can join us live and in person. You can get your photograph with Mark or me or both of us, if you like, or John Dyer even, at London, 20th, 21st of June this year at the Self-Publishing Show Live, Europe's biggest gathering of indie authors. You'd be crazy to miss out on that. selfpublishingformula.com/SPS Live. That's it. All that remains for me to say is a goodbye from him.
And a goodbye from me. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishingshow. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with the Self-Publishing Show.